Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes, to renting versus selling, and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week we talk about something that's going to help you make or save some money, or to just how to maneuver the market, because the real estate market and the world today is a little crazy. So today we're going to talk about interest rates, how to buy, how to get your interest rate down when you're buying, and how the war in Israel is affecting interest rates today. These are all really important topics, especially if you're a buyer, you're a seller, or you're a realtor. So pretty much everybody. So we want to welcome one of our favorite sponsors, Fisch, with Nationwide Mortgage. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
Always
back
a
again.
pleasure. Always a pleasure.
So you're going to tell us today first, what is going on with interest rates? How is that being affected by the war in Israel? And is that going to affect us? I think it's affected a little bit. Yeah. We're seeing a little bit of change. I think always when there's a war out there, it does affect the climate when we're talking about financial aspects. And then let's talk about how can we help our sellers sell their properties and help our buyers get off the fence to make a decision, because I think, I think I'm an expert, and apparently, according to another realtor, said I'm a legend in my own mind. So in my own mind,
I love that.
Obviously competitor.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think that when interest rates start to drop, people are going to run out to go buy as soon as they come to a really good rate.
Yeah.
You'll see that when it's stable a little bit. And we have very low inventory. I haven't seen inventory picking up in the last 2-3 years. It's been a very stable turnover, very slow. Tell me what you think, but let's start first with the war and how that's affecting us.
Yeah, so I think that it hasn't affected us too much yet. It hasn't leaked over. I mean, this is brand new news. Right? So this is as of last week. But to go deeper into why that could affect us is just because historically interest rates respond when the economy's in flux.
Right.
Okay? They respond better to that. It almost moves inversely. Like the better our economy does, typically the worse the interest rates are. Right? That's why during COVID, rates were so low, because it was almost like there was too many people trying to find a safe haven for their money on the secondary market. So you have investors that if things are in flux in the economy, and they're unsure of what direction things are heading, they pull their money out of other investments that they have and they put them in safe investments like mortgage-backed securities, which drives rates down because the demand is so high. But when investors start to pull their money out, sell their mortgage-backed securities and put them in other places, now the rates have to go up to be able to attract investors back. Or else there's not liquidity in the market. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
So
it's not easy.
Yeah.
But
So I mean, it's pretty much just, if you want somebody to buy something, if you have to either raise or lower the price in stocks. You want to raise the interest that somebody's going to be earning on their money to be able to attract them to buy.
Right. So as interest rates rise on our properties, then our interest rates are rising on CDs, where everybody's running now to CDs.
Correct.
So what I find most in the market today is I'm finding that people that have equity are moving to places that are less expensive. They're okay letting go of that 2.9% interest rate, take their money, pay cash for where they're going, and take the rest of their money and have like a nest egg. So those are typically who are people that are willing to go on the market, hence why our inventory is so low, right? Like we'll see a lot of people that are moving from, even if you say from Broward to Palm Beach, and it's funny, I'm starting to take a global look at how taxes and insurance is in other states versus Florida, and how that works, because 8% here is 8% somewhere else, right? And then it's just a matter of what do you get. Like years and years ago, when I first moved here, many years ago, people used to come here and they'd be like, "Oh my God, like it was a mansion for what you got." But now we're almost just as expensive as New York, as California.
Yep.
And
especially with insurance. And taxes when you throw that into the
And
equation?
I'm always wondering, like, how are we going to get a reprieve from that?
Well, that's what we're here for, right? Like lately I've been doing a lot of trainings and seminars at title offices and real estate offices on how to leverage financing in this market in order to win, right?
So yeah, so let's take a commercial break. Let's do that, come back, because that alone is going to be how we're going to teach you how to help your clients buy. So just stay tuned. We're going to have our sponsors and our commercials, and we'll be right back.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fisch, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fisch is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations. Ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fisch today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FRIPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at lauraess.com. And now back to the show.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. So today we're here with Max Fisch. We're talking about everything that's going on in the economy, the war in Israel, how that's affecting us, but what can we do as agents to get our clients off the fence to buy houses and to get our sellers to help to make the transition easier and get more money for their house and actually sell their house? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it's funny because people that I talk to, I say, why aren't you in the market to purchase a house now? Well, because rates are too high. Well, what do you need rates to come down to in order to feel comfortable? And they'll tell me, well, if rate is 7.5, I needed to come down to at least in the 5s. And I say, well, when do you think that's going to happen? Oh, almost always, maybe in the next year or two. Well, I said, if you could have a rate in the 5s right now for the next year or two, would that solve all your problems? Right? Because that's what you just told me. Right? And most of the time that conversation ends in, yeah, if I could get a rate in the 5s right now, at least for the next year or two before rates drop, then I'd be in the market to buy.
Right.
Well, we can do that. We can,
which is called a 2-1.
It's called a temporary rate buy down. Right. But the key to note is that we don't want sellers to suffer when buyers decide to use this program. So what I mean by that is that typically, in order to use this program, it has to be paid for by a seller concession.
Okay.
Right? And so sellers immediately are like, well, why am I going to contribute to their rate buy down? I don't care. Well, there's a couple of reasons why I think sellers should care. One, because it makes their listing more marketable. Okay? And two, because if you take some time to structure and listen with your real estate agent and a lender, you can come up with a plan to where you win and you get the money that you want, maybe sometimes even more if you're willing to offer this program. And the buyer wins because they get their lower interest rate for the first couple of years. So the way that works is, and we were just talking about a perfect example, so I'm going to use that exact example.
Okay.
You have a property listed at $600,000.
Right.
It costs $10,000 for the buyer to get their rate from 7.5 to 6.5.
Okay.
Let's call it. Okay, for the first 2 years. They have 6.5 for the first 2 years. That would be a 1-1 buy down. So it's 1% lower for the first 2 years. Okay?
Now they're doing it for I thought it was like 1 year.
No, 1-1 could be for the first 2 years. And a 1-0 would be for the first year.
Okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
so let's just say it costs $10,000 for them to get it down to 6.5. Well, what if you just built that into the purchase price? When you offer on a house, instead of offering $600, why don't you offer $610 with a $10,000 seller concession? The seller still gets $600. You get your rate buy down.
What happens if it doesn't appraise? Then what do we do? We have to
If
renegotiate,
it doesn't appraise, then we have to renegotiate. But the good news about this market is, and I can't say for sure, so don't hold me to this.
I know.
But the good news about this market is the past couple of years have given us great comps.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure that you can attest to that, because almost in every neighborhood, there's been a couple of sales, at least a sale or two, that helps us from the past couple of years. Everything just being so expensive, right? And so appraisal issues, obviously, they're still there if it's unreasonable, $600,000 house for $700,000. But if we're talking about, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 variances, we're more likely to get it to appraise that way. But my point is that we can now, in that scenario, the buyer saves
Right.
$450 a month for the first 2 years.
Right.
They got the lower interest rate that they wanted, and it's secure for the first 2 years, which they, in their own words, when I ask them that question, they say, well, I think it's going to come down in the next 12 to 24 months, 1 to 2 years. I'm like, great. Now you have a lower interest rate for that time period.
So, but let's say, for instance, let's be devil's advocate.
Yeah, sure.
Just because I'm like that conservative realtor, right?
Yeah.
I worry about everything, and
Yeah.
I get it. Like, to me, it makes total sense to
Yeah.
do, right? Because I really believe that interest rates will come down.
Yep.
Because they've not been this high like my whole career, and I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
They'll come down, and then inventory will shrink up.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to be running after it,
Yeah.
which is then going to drive the prices again, which I feel like we can't afford to get any more expensive than we already are, where I don't even know what minimum wage is. I mean, I remember when I got paid $3.14 an hour. What happens if they don't go down in 2 years? I mean, I know that they have to qualify on what the real rate is.
That's what I was going to say.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know that. So like if the interest rate's 7 3/4, they have to qualify on 7 3/4, but they're getting it for 6 3/4 to make them feel better about it, which is a couple $100 cheaper a month. I get that.
Well, to answer your question, there's some safeguards against it. So number one, again, just to reiterate, they do have to qualify based off the initial rate. But number two, it's easier to mentally prepare, because I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. These aren't adjustable rates. You know exactly when and what the rate is going to be when it changes.
Right.
Right? So if your rate is 6.3 for the first 2 years, you know that 25th month in the third year, it's going to go to 7.3.
So you know that year you got to stop eating out. You got to start crock potting it. You got to tighten up your belt.
But the whole point behind it is when I ask people what are they waiting for to purchase a house,
Right.
they tell me they're waiting for rates to go down in the next year or two, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is that if rates don't go down and they use this program, the worst thing that happened is they gained an asset, because they would have been waiting anyways. And they would have been renting.
And you're renting, you're paying, And
they would have just been waiting, and they would have spent way more money doing that, mathematically speaking.
Are you pretty familiar with like how the whole write-off process goes with mortgage,
I mean,
like with taxes? Because they changed that in the last few years, and it wasn't as advantageous, because we would always say, oh, it's now you can write it off. Like, so what does that look like today?
So my understanding is, and I truly am just playing an accountant on the radio right now.
But, he's not an accountant, so like. But this is the basics. We're not here to give perfect information. Nothing perfect here.
Correct.
Just me. No, I'm
just
kidding.
a disclaimer. My understanding is that you can write off the interest you pay on a mortgage throughout the year. You can write off property taxes, is my understanding.
Up to a certain amount.
Up to a certain amount.
But 10,000?
Yeah, I believe it's up to 10,000 you can write off. And then the biggest thing is you can't write off capital improvements to primary residences. To investment properties you can.
Okay.
But not to primary residence. If you were like, hey, I want to change my roof, and you can't write that off.
But you can take that off, save everything you do over the 20
can
years
take
you
it
own
off
it
of the capital
at the very
gains
end.
tax, yes.
Because let's say, for instance, you buy a house, and one of the things I want to tell our audience, like realtors, buyers, sellers, like the one thing I can always tell you, in 10 years, you're always going to be happy that you bought that property.
Yeah.
I get it. It's a lot of work, the maintenance, it's a lot, right? But in 10 years from now, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I did that. Even I look back and I go, oh my God, if I'd waited, you know. And there's something else that's important to point out to people too, which I'll get back to. But you save all that because let's just say you buy it for $250,000. Now it's worth $750,000. If you're married, you get $500,000. I don't need to be an accountant for that. I know that, right?
Yeah.
As long as you live 2 out of 5 years there.
Yep.
Now, let's say I have a client right now. She's like, I don't want to do any more work to it because we're going to have capital gains. I go, okay, so let me get this straight. If you make $100,000 more and it costs you $10,000, and you're going to have to pay $10,000 in taxes on that $100,000, you still made $80,000. You don't want to make $80,000. Like it's actually 82, I think, because you're not paying tax on. You know, I'm like, you don't want to make $82,000 more. Like, who cares if there's a tax? It's only on what's left after. You know, so it's not really a big deal. But the other thing is, which I had somebody that was like kind of on the fence, and I was able to convince them to tell them like that buying was in their best interest because they were ready to change their profession, their career, and they had just sold their house. Now, most people don't know this, but your tax portability, which is a big deal, and it can be lost, is 3 years from the January of which you sold. So if you're selling your house today in October, it's going to be 3 years from the January that just passed, which is 10 months ago. So you would have to buy by the end of, so we're in 2023. I'm like, making sure we're not in 2024. So 24 or 25, you have to buy by December of 25.
Yes.
Okay? But if they're changing their job, they need that for 2 years.
That's interesting.
Right? So they're not changed it yet. They're going to change it some midway in 2024. Now they're going to want to buy a house in 2024, and you're going to look at them and say, yeah, you need to be in this profession for at least another year before I can use your money. Otherwise, you're going to make them go with some kind of crazy loan program, but they're not self-employed, they're a W-2. So now you're going to say, well, you don't qualify, you need to wait until you have more, right? Because you haven't been in this profession for 2 years. So now you're going to lose your portability. And I looked, it was going to be like $2,500 a year that's lost. Like, you really need somebody that sits down and analyzes like everything about what it is that you're doing. But yeah, a lot of people don't think about that.
I mean, listen, the reality is that the majority of people aren't upset that they bought homes, like that they own a house.
Listen, the majority of people, if they just stuck it out during the short sale period of 2007, 8, 9, like 10, it was kind of over. It was like, that was just a good time to buy. They weren't really short sales, maybe here and there, but they were just, prices were good, right? That was like, anybody bought in 2010, you were like a genius.
Well, the reality is you're absolutely correct. The reality is that people dramatize that time period of saying, hey, and they use it as a reason why they don't want to purchase
loan
homes.
programs.
Or well, first of all, there was way different loan programs and different qualification. But if most people during that time period, like you said, just stuck it out for 24 to 36 months, they still won. They would still come out on top. It was just, the problem is that we're like mentally programmed to like if our stocks are lower 1 year or whatever, we're just like, okay, we're like, take what you have. But sometimes it's riding that out. It was only for a short blip of time to where things were down, and then they just started coming back up again.
And when the masses run the other way, you run towards it. Don't run away with them. Like, the majority of people talk about, oh, the rates are too high, the rates are too high. Great. You should buy because the rates will come down. And they're like, well, I don't want to pay for the refinance. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You'd rather pay $50,000 over the purchase price than to spend $10,000. It's not even $10,000, because where people get confused is a lot of the costs are in the prepaids. What is a prepaid? Right?
So prepaid insurance.
They don't, and you're getting that back from the mortgage company when you do the refi.
Correct.
But people are focused on that big number.
I know.
So technically, it might be costing them 4 or 5, and if they already bought from you from the beginning, you're not even charging them any of those other costs. You're just charging them the hard costs.
Yep.
So I think that we need to like kind of sit down with pen and paper and show people, hey, like if you buy today, right? Not only that, and if you mention chicken, you get your appraisal. I
mean, the best time to buy, that's true, and nobody's done that. But the best.
What's wrong with you people? Chicken, 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 chicken. You see Max, you say chicken.
The best time to buy was always a year ago. You know, that's I mean,
Just what year was it?
The
Yeah,
reality
a year
is
ago.
the reality is people that told me last year that they weren't buying because it was a bad time tell me this year that they wish they would have bought a year ago.
Actually, I think it's better for the people who have bought with the higher interest rate than to buy paying $100,000.
Well, yeah, because like we've said, you can change your rate, but you can't change what you paid for a house.
Right. And some people, like, when I started analyzing the market over the last year, I was sitting here going, I can't believe this still went up. Like,
I know.
what is going on? I
know.
met with somebody last year and 55 plus, and I was like, you actually went up over 100,000 from last year to this year.
Yeah. I mean, South Florida real estate it's one of those things that there's not that much more room to build. I mean, there's the limited supply of homes, and people want to live here, and the reality is it's one of the safest bets, I believe, in the country, you know, is South Florida real estate.
Yeah.
Just because it's, you know, people want to live here and there's not that much more space to build homes.
No, it's crazy.
You know, so that's, you know, I am a huge advocate of it. I mean, I'm a little biased, but, you know, obviously, you know, some people are taking what I'm saying with a grain of salt because I do this for a living, but my point is that I actually believe in it.
You own real estate, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
So
what would be a good number for everybody to reach out to you, to give you a call, to get you?
yeah, so a perfect number is my personal line, 954-729-6933. That's 954-729-6933.
And if you are looking for a top agent, need somebody to help you make sure that your home's looking in the best shape possible, getting top dollar, I have shown that I'm getting 4 or 5 offers in the first week with homes that have been remodeled by yours truly. So, I mean, I help to make sure that you feel comfortable and safe, that you're not going to get your money taken from you. So give me a call at 954-650-0827. And definitely reach out to Max if you're thinking about buying. Let him talk to you about the buy down programs, how that works. He didn't even mention it, but you can do it for 2 or 3 years. It's
Yep.
a lot more expensive, but if it makes you feel safe, definitely an option out there. So, you know, but it could also be wasted money too, in case interest rates do come down, and I don't know if that money can be given back to you if you don't utilize it within a time frame.
It can. It sits in a pot. So
Say that real quick. Tell them, because that I think is super important.
if you get a seller concession towards your rate buy down, and you don't keep the loan for long enough to, you know, through that period, if it's a 3-year rate buy down and you refinance after a year, the 2 years remaining, the funds go back to you towards your refinance.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that could create it where it doesn't cost you anything.
Correct. Yep.
So guys, give Max a call. 954-729-6933. Did I get
Perfect.
that?
Yeah,
oh my
you
God, I
did.
can't even remember what I had for breakfast.
You
and I didn't
did.
get that yet.
That's awesome.
I'll see if I can do it later. Anyway, give us a call. We look forward to hearing from you, and make it a great day.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you